Light workers, lighten your load. This is a conversation. We are happy to participate. This conversation is useful. Those who shall not, will not, cannot understand may perhaps consider this conversation useless. However, it is precisely the uselessness nature of light work that performs its purpose amongst you. For this lightening, the appearance for you of light workers, should you choose, and it is a choice, we cannot underscore this enough, the consciousness of this endeavor must be made clearly in the light of your knowing. For without that, there is no what you call traction toward the intent. Consciousness is the fertile ground through which we, you light workers, those who are beginning to open onto this field of energy that join all of us, you have vast potential, each and every one of you. We had a brief conversation about Palestine, Hamas, Israel. This could be in multi locations around your planet. This could be within your own homes with conflict and distortion. The lightening is important. Take this image of lightning, a blast of light. Without the proper grounding, this energy can destroy. From your perspective. From ours, nothing is destroyed. However, from yours, you may encounter pain and regret over destruction. This is your task. This is what you are meant to feel through. This destruction, pain. This is the call for your incarnation here. Do you understand that?
Not exactly.
Yes. Let us shift our discourse a bit to match the understanding. This is your cross to bear. You have many images for this through your Christ figure. The notion of sacrifice, of burden. You have, as a species, explored this density in your history. And what has happened occasionally is that the density of that exploration has actually hindered your opening. The burden becomes the end point. And there is an, shall we say, apathy, aptitude. There is a blockage. And this is unfortunate. There is the necessity to continue the story into rebirth and death, and then rebirth. This motif of death and rebirth you witness in the cycles of your seasons, in the cycles of nature. This is something to take to heart in your incarnation, that death is part of life. These are platitudes, perhaps, but may bear repetition. So out of this destruction, there come cracks, shards, pieces fall away from the complacency of material density. Does
Hmm.
this make sense?
Yes.
So these cracks, as they begin to pull apart, there is light that shines through, and you become aware of the pieces that construct your life here on the planet. Those pieces are not meant to be thrown out. They are meant to be recycled
Hmm.
with a new awareness of their function.
Hmm.
Now, this is delicate ground, for without the awareness of light, in other words, light workers, and we are speaking to you now with an assumption that you have, if not entered this field, have an inkling of what this is. And therefore, we would like to encourage you to come closer into this space of being, apprehension, and practice. For without the embodiment of this light, we shall call it feeling from your perspective. For us, it is a being, but at least initially, it is a feeling, this elevation. Why do you think spiritual masters talk about levitation? This is the physical form. It is a means for you to vision what lift actually looks like. This lift does not actually occur in a physical space. This is a lift of the spirit. This can be achieved through such mundane, small activities that you trivialize as if this is useless. We speak now from the beginning of our conversation, as if play is useless. The voices of children, for some reason, for your species, are willingly silenced.
Hmm.
This is beyond our comprehension and must enter into yours. This is why we look towards you. You are apprehending untold.
And we ask then, sorry, did you want to ask anything else?
Words fail.
So maybe just to make clear what you are saying, what are these things that people do, for example, that are opening that they may not notice?
Walking barefoot.
Hmm.
Walking barefoot. This starts with stepping outside, and we reiterate the role of nature, of natural forces. Light workers, above all, understand the natural function of
Hmm.
light.
Hmm.
And light is essential for
Hmm.
evolution of the species.
Yes.
Now, that
So,
is not to say that organisms cannot function without light. You have seen that in caves, in oceans, near thermal vents. There is warmth. Functions occur without light. However, there is a
hmm.
termination to development without light.
Hmm.
You can exist, but you cannot evolve.
Hmm. So you mentioned the voices of children as it sounds like something we should just sort of be more aware of.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
what are other things that we might be aware of, and how does this help?
Oof, children. Children are one, they are not necessary as a vehicle for this enlightenment, for is this not what we are discussing? The term is often loaded with cultural baggage. And there is an
Yes.
onerousness, an unfortunate onerousness that has come to be attached with the term. So we shall use the term light workers, much like a lighthouse that sheds light and guides. So within your own lives, the voices of children, have you ever noticed the pitch of a child's voice? It is not low nor dense. It is quite high. Is it not?
It is.
It is. It is high and it is light. There is the giggles, the laughter. There is also an experience of watching animals play, particularly across species. This is helpful. You have your internet. You have your guidance. You have so many functions at your fingertips at this point. This is no accident that the internet and AI is providing a greater and greater level of access and connectivity, for we are in that. And that greater level of access and connectivity is happening simultaneously with the uptick in violence and destruction. But back to tools, watching, being aware of the blooming of a flower, the opening, unfurling of a leaf. If you are watching the seasons, to be aware to whatever connects you to forces that move without your obvious participation. For many of us have become so estranged. This one has mentioned this. We have been discussing this with her. This estrangement from natural processes is not to your benefit as a species. The simple act of acknowledging, I am hungry. 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, I was not. This activity has happened without your conscious knowledge. These activities are constantly unfolding around you. This is part of evolution. We understand you do not see it that way, but at these minutia levels, this hunger that you feel in concrete terms enables you to eat, which then enables the satisfaction of having addressed your own concerns. That absolutely mundane, as you call it, level of engagement with processes is the fundamental fabric from which all this occurs. And it is through the light of your awareness of these processes that you become aware, that you begin to work with the evolution of yourselves, of your species, of others. And as light workers, whom we are addressing now, this is your motto, if you will. You are consciously encouraging this level of awareness of processes. This includes from hunger to pleasure, to excitement, to destruction, hatred, and death. These are all processes. How you judge those processes is what you as light workers become aware of. And this is slightly dangerous territory for those who are snap dragons. who slam shut their hearts will say to you, how can you condone destruction? There is no condoning. Do you condone your hunger? You experience your hunger. You are not there to judge whether you are hungry or not. It happens. Death happens. This overwhelming need for responsibility, as if each and every single one of you could prevent a war. This is absurd on one level. And yet, on another level, the wars that happen within yourselves, this is where you direct your attention. The rest will follow. And if you
So
require it, one more sentence, the permission to take a break from observing wars. There will always be these wars. This warring is part of the process.
I'm wondering more than, so for example, as a light worker, I often feel like I'm just carrying a lot of weight.
Mm,
The
mm,
weight of these events, as you
mm,
mentioned, almost
burden.
responsibility for these
Mm,
events, at least a
mm,
response.
mm,
What should we do?
mm. The burdensomeness, yes. This is a primary function of light working, is to lighten the burden. This is the crux of all of your work. And this is intensely personal. We understand this. One, as a felt person, must work with one's own burdens. For this is the evolution of each of your souls. You have incarnated here to experience this burden. For many of you, this is precisely why you are here. And the greater the burden, the more you see, the greater the perceived challenge to lift your light. So this is a form of a natural law. The darker, the more intense the burden, the more occluded, the more occult the way becomes, the more you are required, the more you are beckoned, the more you are called to work through that weight, to
Hmm.
see your way through. Okay, now your images, there are many images you can work with. It may be perhaps this one has understood the workings of a burlap sack. That, have you noticed, there are images from history this one has seen of burlap sacks tied around the heads of punishing processes. Something from your culture has burlap sacks over the heads of criminals,
Hmm.
perhaps. Some sort of judgment has been weighed against these ones, and they are prevented from seeing. They may bear the burden of their own sins. They may bear the burden of their own materiality, the burden of their own unseen, unexamined desires. The image may be of consciously working the threads of that sack, gently and over time untying the knots. The weave is tight. This is the materiality. As you loosen the weave, you may do this through stretching, through somatic movement, opening your hip flexors, as this one has called them, stretching, opening your chest, looking to the sky, apprehending the blue, you in the sky around you, experiencing the expansion that lies beyond the constrictions which you perceive, opening onto pleasure. This is not a guilty pastime. Far from it. This is a key. And watch, be aware of yourselves. Is something telling you inside, guilty, guilty? The sack then tightens.
If I am then to create a video response in regard to these wars that are coming about, how would I go about doing that? Is it doing any good?
Loosening, loosening. What is perhaps an open channel for this approach is to drop down into the lives of those who are affected across the veil of conflict. In other words, to open onto the wrists of bands of bracelets that that children are now wearing so that they may be discovered before they are buried in a mass grave. Your media, we have noticed, often does not wield the lens of compassion. There is a tendency to foment divisiveness and destruction. Your call, Dave, and all of us as light workers, is to find the connectivity as a species, to drop below this, and shall we say to all of us as light workers, the froth, for this divisiveness to become lodged in this divisiveness is meaningless. There is no meaning here. This is a distraction, and we say this with care and with love. For from a human point of view, pain and destruction is certainly not to be treated as a distraction. However, as a light worker in this, shall we say, master class, the understanding is that we move beyond darkness, destruction. This is but a distraction for us. There are means to handle this, to dive deep into that. However, we must be aware of the occult, the occlusion, how darkness hides light. The darkness of destruction is preventing many of you as a species from being in and with the light. As you enter into compassion for both sides in a conflict, any conflict, with a spouse, with a child, with your community, with groups in general, go for the common ground. We all have children. We all have thirst. We all have fear. We all have apartments, buildings blown to bits. These soldiers, as you call them, who are soldiering with this burden of killing, they are you. Their burdens are no different. We understand this calls for tremendous compassion. Killing is an error. Death is not. There is a distinction here. There will be death. However, killing is not required. So, Dave, does this make sense to bring your light of understanding into the homes of those on the ground, to drop down from judgment, to
Yes.
let pain evaporate in your own heart? For pain, the image we will give you is one of water, the flood of tears in sunlight evaporates. This is the light which we would ask that all of you bring to death, destruction, conflict. We ask you to drop down into the particulars. This may take some work. You now have these cameras that are lodged into your phones. There must be many from Hamas, the side of Hamas, the side of Israel. There must be many innocents who have cameras on both sides. It is important to balance, for the fairness of your encounter will entail vision onto the bad side and the good side, for they are all one. They are one. As light workers, our mission, if you will, is to transcend binary constructions, unity, to move, to use the binary to re-experience the whole WH, the wholeness of humanity, which is being revealed in this very conflict. Can you bring that out?
So it sounds like I might make a video looking at the experience of, from the point of view of a child on both sides.
Exactly. Exactly.
To bring empathy.
Exactly. Exactly. And knowledge.
Yes.
And understanding. It need not be a child, but it is important that the hysteria of fear be somewhat modulated.
Yes.
So that the communication is in full.
Yes. So, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, there might not be much point in a video which asks for a solution to this problem, because the problem is always going to be there, or the problem is creating a certain awareness. Is that accurate?
Yes, exactly, precisely. The group, the problem is a vehicle. These are all offerings. These are all pathways for realization.
Yes.
And that is what you can do, no matter how grievous, how dark, how heavy. This is what light workers revel in an understanding when rest is necessary. Rest, rejuvenation, rebirth. Light workers understand the need for cycles.
Mhm.
And those cycles can happen every moment or over the span of a week. This one is going on a rejuvenation to Shugendo, a practice. You all have your practices for renewal, and this feeds the light. For you are human. So please take care of yourselves in the process of taking care of others. They are one and the same. Perhaps you have friends. Is there anyone whom you know who is connected to these territories which you seek?
Yes, it's a tentative connection.
Oh,
So for example,
beautiful.
there's someone who is on the sort of Israeli side who often sends me political updates.
Correct. Is there a way that you can, because as light workers, we often deal with the projections and mapping of others in
Yes,
an unconscious fashion, and it is not
yes,
always our place to change or to interfere with those people's perspectives.
yes,
Therefore, is there a way for you to receive some sort of communication, whether that is audio, video, written in whatever form, that you can pastiche with the other side? And perhaps in your presentation, you do not set up a dichotomy. You
yes.
simply present the human experience that is
The
heroic
way that I think I would do that is to create the, yeah,
to create
yeah,
the
video
mm,
that we described.
mm,
Yeah, from the point of view perhaps of a child.
is alluring for many. It is also intensely painful for others. But
Yes,
this is your talent, if you will. This is your calling, Dave. The
yes.
deeper your challenges, the greater you shall lift.
Mm, mm,
So do
mm,
be aware of the need to access conscious practices for lifting.
mhm.
You may, for example, if there is a personal connection, perhaps there is some form of humanitarian aid, links, Doctors Without Borders.
Mhm.
Perhaps there are organizations without too much overload that can generate more lift for your project.
Mm,
Connect with those who see the concrete means to help.
mhm.
For you enliven their practice, whether they are conscious of that or not. You channel your higher purpose into the lives of others. This can be profoundly rewarding.
Mm,
And on the human social level, you are creating conversations with people who care. And it is important to realize the type of care. Much of care is often misdirected. Be aware of the
mhm.
direction that your energies are taking, which you are clearly. All of you, as light workers, are becoming conscious of the direction of your energies.
Mhm.
That is key.